Then you have fraud, which is probably another 20%. Then you have unviewable ads, which is estimated between 25 and 50%. And by the time you get down to it, according, I'm no statistician, but my best calculation is that for a dollar spent on programmatic advertising, you get about 3 cents worth of real ads in front of real people.
Hey everyone, in this episode, we're talking with Bob Hoffman, aka the Ad Contrarian. And boy oh boy, Bob does not disappoint. We talk about some of the harsh truths about online advertising and ad fraud, but also about how creativity can be an antidote to all of this. So buckle up and let's talk branding. This episode is sponsored by Creative Business Company, but more on that later.
I'm Bob Hoffman. I'm a writer and sometimes speaker, and I'm a retired advertising executive. I live in California, and I was chief executive of several agencies here in the States. And now I'm just a loudmouth pain in the ass who likes to talk about advertising.
I love that. Maybe because you're online, you're quite well known as the ad contrarian. But were you always like that, or how did you grow into that role of being a bit of that person that can really shake the industry up?
Well, I was always a skeptical person from the time I was a child. And I got into the advertising business at the age of 25. I had never studied advertising. I'd never taken an advertising course or a marketing course. But I got into advertising, and my first impression of the advertising industry was these people don't know anything. They think they know a lot of things, but they really don't know anything. And it's pretty much hasn't changed in 100 years since I started in the advertising business. And so I've always questioned the things that we held to be truths in the advertising and marketing world. And I still continue to do that.
Yeah, and maybe you've written about a lot of things, and we'll definitely talk about ad fraud and that sort of stuff. But maybe what is some of the biggest bullshit you've recently heard in marketing?
I think the most I don't know, not dangerous, but silly idea in the advertising business in the last 4 or 5 years is the concentration on one-to-one personalized advertising. I don't think advertising works that way. Advertising works mostly by making you famous. And you don't become famous one person at a time. You become famous in public where a lot of people can see and hear you. And if you look at all the major brands in the world, they have one thing in common. They're all famous. And how did they get famous? They got famous substantially through doing mass advertising. Not every brand, but most brands got famous by doing mass advertising, not by doing one-to-one personalized advertising. And so to me, that's, as far as that's my dog. He doesn't like one-to-one personalized advertising either. That to me, that's the silliest idea that, we do it now because we can do it, right? Because online advertising made it possible to reach one person at a time. But simply because we can do it is not a good reason to do it, in my opinion.
One of the biggest challenges in my own career has always been to convince business leaders that brand is one of the most important assets in their company. And even though dozens of studies have shown that getting the right strategic positioning can get you a 5x performance on your ads, sometimes convincing executives to prioritize their brand strategy can be challenging. That's why this episode is sponsored by Creative Business Company, a strategic consultancy on a mission to make brand more accountable and more effective. They take the lessons they've learned from over a decade of experience of working with brands such as Morningstar, Shell, and Formula E and adapt them to smaller, fast growing companies to help them get more attention, convert leads, and drive sales. So if you're trying to get budget for brand, create messaging that converts, or lower your cost of acquisition, check out creativebusinesscompany.com for ideas, evidence, and tools that will help you make an impact. Interesting. Maybe like obviously I've read your book Ad Scam, which I highly recommend to anyone in marketing. I think it's one of those books that you just like you I read through it in like day and night because it was
Thank you.
so very it pulled me in. So
Thank you.
maybe walk us through the premise of like what you describe in that book, because like I'm surprised that a lot of people really don't know about this.
Yeah. There's a lot of fraud and corruption and double dealing in the advertising world, and it's concentrated on the programmatic advertising system. Uh, I don't know what you call it, apparatus, if you like, and it's full of criminals. It's full of creeps. It's and people don't know what they're getting. People are buying advertising online. They don't know who they're buying it from. They don't know what they're getting. They don't know what they're paying, and they don't know who's seeing it. And they think they do because we have all this so-called metrics, and the metrics are highly unreliable at best. In some cases, they're fraud, and there have been plenty of instances where this has been revealed, but for some reason, the advertising and marketing industry doesn't want to face the reality of what's happening, and they continue to throw away tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars a year on online display advertising bought through the programmatic apparatus, and they're buying nothing. They think they're buying ads on website. In many cases, they're buying nothing. They're and the only things that are viewing their ads are bots. And in some cases, the websites they're buying don't even exist. They're buying fraudulent things that look like websites, but aren't really websites. They're buying people who look like people, but aren't really people. They're buying clicks that look like clicks, but aren't really clicks. And the evidence of this is overwhelming. If people would take the time to learn what's really going on instead of believing everything that people around them are saying, they would discover this. And it's a remarkable thing how, there's going to be $650 billion spent on online advertising this year. About 80% of it is going to be bought programmatically, probably. Nobody knows, nobody knows for sure anything that's happening online, but probably 80% is bought programmatically. And of that, we know that 50% of every advertising dollar that is spent goes into the programmatic. It doesn't go to pay for advertising. It pays for programmatic services, whatever the hell they are. That's 50%. Then you have fraud, which is probably another 20%. Then you have unviewable ads, which is estimated between 25 and 50%. And by the time you get down to it, I'm no statistician, but my best calculation is that for $1 spent on programmatic advertising, you get about 3 cents worth of real ads in front of real people.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how we are able to have this scale of like fraud and money waste in an
Yeah,
industry that is quote unquote like very obsessed with ROI. Uh,
Yeah, we're really not. I mean, the agencies are obsessed with ROI. They know that, you know, two-thirds of their money these days, according to the latest statistics I saw, two-thirds of their revenue is coming from online advertising. And they don't
hmm.
want to kill that golden goose. So they're not going to make any noise. And, the marketers are, with all due respect, many of them are idiots and they don't know what they're buying. And consequently, we have this ridiculous system. If you set out, if you had set out to create a wasteful, corrupt system, you couldn't have done any better than we have done with the programmatic advertising
Yeah,
apparatus.
maybe just out of curiosity, because this is mostly about display ads being shown on different websites. Is
Yeah.
does this level of fraud also apply to things like social media ads, where they're mostly displayed on the platforms?
When you buy directly from a social media platform, you are generally not as subject to fraud. Generally, if you buy the social media's primary website, the problem is the social media companies now, Facebook and others, and Google is into this, have networks of websites which are not part of their system, that they, if you're not careful, and if you're not specific in what you're buying from them, they will take your money and put it on those things, and those things are horrific. Also, the what we call the walled gardens, the Facebooks and the Google, when you buy their primary website, you cannot you cannot believe the metrics they give you, because it's been shown over and over that they lie about their metrics. I mean, Facebook famously, I wrote about this, had more people on Facebook than existed in the world. Um, in some of their sales materials and some of the bullshit they were peddling to marketers. So you really have to be very, very careful when you're buying online advertising, because the whole thing is highly unreliable. And the ironic part is, when online advertising became a thing in the early 2000s, the way it was sold to us in the well, you're going to have perfect information. You're going to know exactly who's looking at your ad, exactly how many people you reached, exactly what they did, exactly what you got for your money. And it has turned out to be the exact opposite. There is more questions now about what we're actually getting for our online advertising dollar than there ever has been in the history of advertising. So that's the irony of it all.
Yeah, and this reminds me a lot of, like, I mean, I've run my fair share of campaigns on Meta on Facebook, and you see these huge numbers, like whatever millions of people have seen this ad, but you almost never hear them from people like talking to you
Right.
about them seeing it. And then sometimes you have people that have seen your ad like 17 times a day and they're annoyed with it, like stop showing me it. So it's
Yeah.
very random of like where it happens and when it happens and how much. So I totally see that even on platforms the effectiveness is probably like way off. And what's interesting to me is like there's this level of it doesn't really work, but then there's an even bigger level which you talk about a lot, and there's the societal impact of this whole system. Could you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, we have a very dangerous thing going on in social media, and that is the creation of algorithms that describe us. So you are you, let's take your Facebook page, for example. Your Facebook page looks completely different from my Facebook page. And why does it do that? Because Facebook has collected information through tracking over the years in which they have created an algorithm that looks like Steph and an algorithm that looks like Bob, and they know what to feed us to keep us engaged. In 2018, some Facebook executives did a study, and they found that of two thirds of people who joined extremist groups on Facebook were led there by the Facebook algorithm. And we know how divided, I don't know how it is where you are, but here in the States, the division in the population is stark and dangerous. And a lot of that, in my opinion, has been driven by social media algorithms that feed us to keep us engaged. They feed us more and more lurid versions of our own predispositions. And that takes us down rabbit holes, and we go down rabbit holes, and we find people with extreme versions of our own opinions, and it has a tendency to radicalize people. And that's what has happened. And that has caused deep divisions in society. And I think it has been very dangerous. And I think we need to be very careful, because what is supporting all of this? It's advertising dollars.
Hmm.
Why do they do all this tracking of us? Why do they create these algorithms? For the benefit of advertisers. So we are essentially funding some very dangerous aspects of democratic societies that are doing harm to individuals and are doing harm to the integrity of our political systems. And I think if you read my books, you'll get a more, what shall I say, a more detailed and more broader view of what I'm trying to say here.
Mm, yeah. And I mean, I've seen this firsthand. Like, I've done some research here locally, and our biggest like party right now in Belgium is a very extreme right wing party. They're the biggest spenders on Facebook, so it's pretty clear that like these guys know how to play that, and it's working for them, but it's not working for society for sure.
Yeah, and it's not just the ads they're buying, it's the algorithms
Yeah.
that are driving individuals into places that are creating misinformation, um, are fomenting hatred and lies, and it's just not healthy. Yeah,
Hmm.
and the social media, um, the owners are very irresponsible. They do not, they say they police the messages, but they don't, and it's a big problem.
Yeah. So let's say, hopefully, everyone catches on to this problem. We drop the whole tracking, spying situation. Not very likely, but anyway, like how can how does it look like in a post tracking world? Because like
It
online and digital isn't going nowhere, but like what does it look like then?
Yeah, you have to remember, before spying on people came along, advertising was very successful for decades without spying on people, right? The idea that we have to spy on people in order to be successful advertisers is bullshit. It's nonsense. We were very successful and very profitable, and brands were very successful and very profitable before spying and tracking came along. It's totally unnecessary. The online advertising industry claims that it's essential to their business model, that, that tracking is essential to their business model. Well, if online advertising is such a weak force that you have to spy on people in order to make it successful. How did these companies become some of the most profitable companies in the history of the world? I mean, it's total bullshit. And for some reason, I was in your country not long ago, and I spoke at the European Parliament. Somehow these regulators and these legislators have been convinced by the big money in the ad tech industry that tracking is necessary, and that it's not harmful, and somehow we have to get over that. The only way to get over it is if people say, no, I've had enough. I mean, we would never tolerate governments spying on us, governments knowing everything we're doing, everyone we're talking to, everything we're saying. We would never but somehow we tolerate it from the marketing industry. I mean, there was a report to the British Parliament not long ago that said by the time the average child in Europe is 13 years old, the ad tech industry has 72 million data points on that child. There was a recent article by a woman who's a journalist. She wanted to know what information Facebook had on her, and there's a regulation now in Europe, and CMA. I don't know what it's called. All these three-letter acronyms drive me crazy. But anyway, there's a regulation that if you ask, they have to show you all the information they have on you. So this woman went through a whole thing, and she finally got Facebook to give her the information they had on her. Take a guess how many pages of information they had on her.
Let's say 50.
Ready? 20,000. 20,000 pages of information on one person. It's beyond belief.
It's crazy, and on the one hand, like, you would think that, like, with all of this data, like, it would be a powerful tool in terms of, like, then advertising people, but apparently then on that side it totally falls flat.
It's a powerful tool in convincing marketers to use their platform. That's what it's powerful for. I mean, and there are successes. I'm not going to deny that there are successes, but it is what's more important: the convenience of marketers or the privacy rights of individuals and the integrity of democratic institutions. I mean, there's no question what's more important. So I don't care if there have been there's some successful, marketing, case histories, online advertising. Of course, there are going to be some, but that doesn't justify it. That's not enough. The convenience of marketers is not enough to overcome the privacy rights of individuals and the integrity of democratic institutions.
I created this podcast to help myself and others understand the power of brand building without all of the BS. So here's 3 no BS guides from my friends at Creative Business Company that you can download for free to drive impact. The Brand Investment Blueprint outlines the exact process they use to convince skeptical executives to invest in brand building projects and campaigns. How Challengers Can Position for Growth explains how brands can find and leverage their hidden advantage to create brand marketing that sells. And last, my favorite, How to Build a Big Brand on a Small Budget, explores how to outsmart and overtake market leaders with more cost-effective marketing. Go to creativebusinesscompany.com/staff to download your free guides today. That's creativebusinesscompany.com/STEF to download your free guides today. Back to the podcast. Exactly, and like, I think a big part of it is indeed like this, almost marketers can feel like well, they can be a lot more lazy because it feels like you can be in this like clean cockpit just dialing up stuff and you see the results happening,
Oh
even
yeah,
though it's a fake, like you're not really there. But I think that's a big part of it.
yeah. I think you're right. It's the what the false belief in control. You
Mm.
think you dial it in, and you think you're in a cockpit of an airplane or something, and you're not. You're you're at the mercy. You don't, they give you numbers. You don't know if the numbers are true or not. And if you look into it, you very often find that a lot of it's baloney.
Yeah, and that's why I think like you also talk a lot about creativity almost as a sort of like antidote for this problem, or at least this type of advertising. Like maybe if you think about that, like how can we go back to that as marketers?
We probably can't. I think the marketing industry has put all its chips down on technology rather than creativity. And, I'm not going to change that. You're not going to change that. That's what they believe in. And, but if you look, if you take a big picture look at advertising, you ask any senior, serious marketer who's been around for a while and ask them, has advertising become more effective or less effective? And you will hear almost unanimously advertising has become less effective than it used to be. That 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, before you were born, advertising was more effective than it is now with all this technology. So, look in any other field. Are cars less effective than they used to be because of technology? No. Are airplanes less effective? No. Is medicine less effective? No. It's only advertising that has gotten less effective with technology. And why is that? Because we have devalued creativity. And creativity is what people remember about advertising. They you know they don't remember reach, they don't remember frequency, they remember ideas, they remember creativity. But the advertising industry has given up on that. Not all. I mean,
Mm. Yeah.
there are some great advertising agencies. There are some great creative people in the business. But I mean, the Association of National Advertisers here in the U.S. issued some kind of statement, maybe it was last year, saying we have a crisis. Creative people do not want to go into the advertising business anymore.
Mm.
There are too many other options for good creative people these days, and the advertising industry, because it has been, one of the problems is we have become corporatized, we have become industrialized, and now we don't we we're not optimizing for craftsmanship. We're optimizing for efficiency. That's what industrialized. That's what industrialized businesses do. They
Mm.
optimize for efficiency. So you make one pencil, and you have a nice template for what a pencil looks like, and then you can make 10 million more pencils just like it. And that's optimizing for efficiency. When you optimize for craftsmanship, each pencil has to look a little different, has to be a little different, has to, you have to think about a little. What could a pencil actually be? What kind of eraser could we have that we don't have on this? Well, we're not optimizing for craftsmanship
Mm.
anymore. And I don't know, maybe I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the agency business has become so consolidated. There are so few independent players anymore who are substantial. Um, and there's too much power in too few hands in the advertising business, in my opinion.
Mm. Yeah. What's also interesting I don't know if you've heard the latest podcast episode on uncensored CMO with Scott Galloway. He made
Hmm.
some pretty interesting remarks. His whole spiel about brands are dead,
Oh,
because
please.
yeah, I mean, I don't like that one too, but it's kind of interesting because in a way I see some overlap where he's saying like, this whole online world has got us navigating in a different way to find out stuff that we want, and it isn't through traditional, brand building anymore. However, I disagree on it. I'm curious, like, about your thoughts on it. I already feel you're
I've
not
heard this
approving,
so many times.
but
First of all, let me tell you a little about Scott Galloway. I know the guy. My former business partner was his. Roger Lewis was my former agency business partner, and Roger taught Scott in in I think it was his master's class in marketing. I don't know, something at University of California. And Scott, I would see him around the agency from time. He would come to our agency and hang around from time. He's a very smart guy, very smart guy. But brands are not dead. I've heard that so many fucking times. Oh, brands are dead. Marketing is dead. Advertising is everything is fucking dead. Bullshit. I mean, just look at people. Go into a supermarket and look at people shop. What is a brand? It's a name. A brand
Hmm.
is a name. Are names dead? Are products not going to have names anymore? Of course not. Go watch people. They know what they want to buy in this. They take this and they take that. And no, brands are not dead.
No, it's it, and first off, totally agree. I think it's a part of his spiel there is just to get people to engage and to
Yeah, he's a.
uh,
I know what that's like. I'm the same way. I like to say outrageous things to stir up a conversation, and that's fine. We need that. That's great. But I'm wrong sometimes, and he's wrong sometimes, and brands are not dead. As a
yeah.
matter of fact, the less attention people pay to sussing out the meaning of brand and all this stuff, the more important a big brand name becomes. Because
Hmm.
people, they don't have the time, the energy, or the incentive to study everything they buy and what does this mean and what does that have in it. And mostly we buy products we're familiar with and comfortable with.
Hmm.
And that's mostly if go into your refrigerator, take a look, go into your cupboard and take a look at what you've bought, and it's mainly stuff that you're familiar with and comfortable with. You don't do most people. Now there are some people who study. There's some whack jobs. So every little thing, what's every, but most of the people who are not like you and me and Scott and pay attention to all this shit. They just buy what they're familiar with and what they're comfortable with.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what's interesting to me is like, in some way, it's probably not like we can't really go back to the
No,
golden days of. I mean, that's
there
over.
were no golden days. That's all bullshit.
Also true.
Advertising, advertising was always mostly crap. That hasn't changed. I mean,
Mm.
I've been in and around the advertising business for 100 years, and it's always been 85% crap. Now it's 93% crap. It's a little more. It's more crap, but so it used to be 15% good stuff. Now it's 7% good. That means the good stuff is there's half as much good stuff as there used to be.
Hmm.
But it's always been. There's never been a golden age. Don't buy that baloney.
No, that's true. And but I think it's more like my question would be about like channels.
Yeah,
Like the question is TV, a lot of these things. Well, it's also like it's harder to get like as a smaller brand. Basically, you can't afford these things. That's always
yeah.
been true. But like, how do you build a brand without the tracking thing, and also without going into like this super expensive stuff?
I don't know. It's very hard. It's very hard. I don't know how you do it. I mean, the most important thing you can have is word of mouth. I mean, if you
Mm.
go back and you look at the history of some of the largest brands in the world right now, Google, for example, that was built on word of mouth. They didn't do advertising for many years. Same with Facebook. They never did advertising for many years. It was built on word of mouth. So that's, if you can do that, that's great.
Mm.
But the most important thing, if you want to be successful as a small brand, if you want to build your brand, the most powerful thing you can do is to become famous somehow. That that is the most powerful tool you have, is fame. If you think about it, fame is, if you're famous, you have such an immense advantage over your competitors who are not famous. And that's not just for brands, that's for human beings. I mean, why am I on this podcast today? There are 1,000 people in the marketing business who are smarter than me, but I have this kind of slight fame in our stupid little advertising and marketing culture. And, and that's why I'm here, and the other 999 people are not here.
Mm.
Fame is an immense advantage, and whatever budget you have as a small brand, the, use that to make yourself famous. Any way you can do that,
Mm.
that's my advice. I'm a copywriter. I'm not a media specialist. I don't give people advice on what media to use.
Yeah.
But I do give them advice on this, and that is, try to become famous. If you can become famous, you have such an advantage over your competitors.
Mm. And like what's super fascinating to me is like, even in this digital online, like the people right now that are building huge businesses are often like creators, like Mr. Beast and these YouTube people. And the thing they have in common is like they are entertainers and they're becoming like immensely famous, which is,
Yeah,
I think, something companies could learn a lot from, but like apparently very hard to see.
yeah. Everyone's focused on the little things. They don't see the big picture, and not everyone, but a lot of people
Hmm.
are focused on all the little detail. They see every tree, but they can't see the forest. And the forest is become famous. If you can do that, you have a much better chance of success. Now, are you guaranteed success? Absolutely not. There are famous companies that go out of business every day
Hmm.
because stupid is more powerful than fame. But fame is still, when I grew up in the agency business, what we were focused on was differentiation and positioning. These were the two things that advertising was supposed to do. And as I have seen more and more of it, I don't buy that anymore. The differentiation and positioning are important, but the best differentiation you can have is to be the most famous company in your category. And the best positioning you can have is to be the most famous is to be the most famous company in your
Hmm.
category. Those are the best differentiators and the best positioning. And if you look in every category, not every category, but most category, who's the leader in the category? It's usually the most famous person, the most famous brand in the category.
Yeah. I have some listener questions. I can't do all of them, but
I don't answer. I'm sorry. No, listen. Okay,
uh,
let's go.
I so Nick Asbury,
Yeah,
also an amazing writer,
yeah,
at least from my perspective.
yeah.
He
I know the
mentioned,
name. Yep.
yep.
Go ahead.
So he says, I love Bob's 2016 essay or talk, The Devaluation of Creativity. Is
Yep.
there anything he changed or update about it now? And does he think it's a coincidence that creativity declined as purpose rose? Nick is a purpose
Yeah.
guy.
He is a purpose guy.
Well, anti-purpose guy. He's
Okay,
he's
good. Yeah,
the anti-purpose guy.
yeah, good. Glad to hear it. I thought I was the anti, but okay. I'll, I'll, I'll,
he's
I'll give
he's
up.
he's coming for you.
um, I don't remember what I said in that essay, so I can't really comment on whether I changed. I'm sure I changed something. It's what,
Hmm.
6, 7, 8 years later, so there I had to be wrong about something in there. You're never 100% right. But as far as did creativity suffer as a result of purpose? Absolutely, because purpose got us off the track. You know, one of the problems in the advertising business is that we forgot that advertising is not about the consumer. Advertising is about the brand or the product. And we didn't stop, but a lot of advertising became about your lifestyle. And
Hmm.
you know what? People don't need to hear that bullshit. They know what their lifestyle is. That's a focus on focus on the amazing thing your product does that makes it so much more famous and important than other products. That's where, but and brand purpose took us away from that. Brand purpose took us into ideology and into politics, and people don't need more politics. They don't need more ideology. They need more good products that make them look good and feel good and taste good.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm with Nick on that. I'm anti-purpose. I think a lot of it is just masturbation. People talking to themselves, making themselves feel good. Yeah.
Austin Frankie, a good
Yep.
friend of mine, he said, if marketers are from Mars, where are brand strategists from?
Venus. Uh, brand strategists are, brand strategy is like creativity. You can't say it's all good or it's all bad. There are some awful creative people and there are some brilliant creative people. And the same with brand strategy. Most of the brand strategists that I've had the uh, opportunity to talk to and meet with and work with have been very mediocre. Have
Hmm.
not really. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want to get into trouble. But a very very famous creative person who everyone who's listening will know the name. Once we were sitting in my backyard having a glass of wine, and he said to me, the planners write the bad headlines and then we write the good ones. And I think that's that sums it up pretty good, I think, except for a few who really are brilliant and they do a good job and they come up with insights that really mean anything. But you know what? If you take this a strategy from one planner or one brand strategist and you give it to two different agents, you give it to a bad creative agency and then you give it to a good creative agency, you will come up with completely different campaigns. And the good agency will create a wonderful campaign and the bad agency will create a lousy campaign, and they both derived from the same quote brand strategy. So it's so much of it is about how good the creative people are rather than, oh, the strategy nailed this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Actually, I have another question. I just need
Okay.
to
Is
quickly
this from
see what
another
the.
listener?
Yes, yes.
Oh man, your
It's
listeners
a
are a
three.
pain in
It's a
my ass.
three.
Okay, good.
It's the three
Get-
listeners that I have. So all of them.
All three of them have questions. Okay, great. Are we
So
doing
this
this live, by the way? This is live?
it's not live as in it's
Oh,
being
okay.
streamed right now, but it
Oh,
will
okay.
be
It will
published
be, okay,
like
good.
that.
Yeah.
So Don Marty asks,
Don
it's
Marty.
been yeah,
Yeah.
don't know Don, but anyway,
I know Don
it's
very well. He's a wonderful, brilliant guy.
well,
Okay.
It's been almost 10 years since Bob's original refrigerator test. Don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But what are some online brands that have been suggested as counter examples, and how are they doing now?
Whew, man,
Not an
Don,
easy question.
give me a break. What are some online brand? Well, the refrigerator, I'm not sure I can answer that question well, because the refrigerator test is, when people say to me, "Oh, I don't," there were actually two refrigerator tests, but the one I think he's talking about was people said, "Well, advertise. I don't pay any attention to advertising." I said, "Okay, here's what we'll do. I'll bet you $100. We'll go to your house right now, and we'll take everything out of the refrigerator and put all the things that are advertised in one pile and all the things that are not advertised in another pile. And if the non advertised pile is bigger, you win. And if the advertised pile is bigger, I win." And I usually get $100 bill handed to me before we even go to the refrigerator. But anyway, how the refrigerator test, it's about, fast moving consumer goods, supermarket stuff. That's what winds up in your refrigerator. And there haven't been that many online brands that have created successful packaged goods for, most of the successful online brands, most of the successful brands that have been created online have not been supermarket refrigerator brands. So and also I haven't been paying that much attention recently to advertising, so I can't really answer that question. But thanks,
No, but
Don. I owe you a meal because last time you didn't need anything. Don and I had. It's a long story, but go ahead. Okay.
No, but anyway, the refrigerator test, I love
Yeah.
that, and I
Yeah.
guess like indeed a lot of online brands, D2C brands, was a big promise, but it didn't really pan
Yeah.
out as such. So
Yeah.
we'll see about that. But maybe just to wrap it up, any new books or exciting things coming for you, Bob?
Yes, I have two new things, and they're free. They're both free.
Yes.
I have a book called Inside the Black Box, and you can download it free from my website, which is bobhoffmanswebsite.com. Isn't that a brilliant title for your website?
That's so good.
And I have another free book that you can download from my website, and it's called Marketing Stinks. And they're both downloadable and free. So go there and download them both. And then if you like them, then you can buy my books that I'm going to charge you for. Because
that is some proper marketing there.
Right. These are sampling. It's sampling that I'm doing here. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'll put those links in the show notes. Thank you so much, Bob, for coming on the show. This was really fun.
My pleasure, Steph. Thank you for inviting me, and good luck to you and to all your listeners.
All right, that was it for this episode. As always, if you want to stay up to date on the latest episodes, check out the show notes and find out more interesting stuff about brand strategy and brand building. Visit letstalkbranding.substack.com. That's letstalkbranding.substack.com.